Hi, this is Devi. I hope you're doing great today. I want to tell you more about this idea of truly type-safe full-stack apps with tRPC, Zod, and Tanstack Router. So this is basically part of a talk I gave in Amsterdam a few days ago. Depending on when you see that video, it was in the 7th of December 2022. And as a software engineer, I'm actually working on a platform, a packages learning platform, and at some point I got stuck with the fact that I had GraphQL in the backend, basically GraphQL as a way to communicate between my front and back, and I love the stack that I had. It was semi-typed from at every single level, but I had a lot of tools behind the scene that I had to use to generate typings and things like that. And then at that exact moment, I thought I was really at the most optimal productivity level with this stack. Until I discovered tRPC and Zod, and I kept discovering, like, okay, I can get to a certain speed of writing, building things when I put a set of tools together, right? So in this talk, in this video here, I'm going to spend some time showing you a little bit, going from what's the problem are we trying to solve here, and how do we solve it with this stack. And the focus will be on productivity. Really keep in mind that we going to make sure that we go from A to B to Z at a really fast pace, right? So buckle up, because it's going to be really fast. So let's go and do that. So I have an application here. That application is a simple search tool, so that allows you to browse event organized by packages. The company that I work for. So let me move a little bit the let me move that a little bit here. Yeah, it doesn't work. So we have indeed this part here, and you can search. You can put the event here, and then you search over there, and then you have a list of things there. Now, here is what is happening. If I go here and I start typing, you're going to see that nothing is really happening. So let me close that. If I click here and I say intro, like nothing is happening, nothing. Let's see how could we solve it. If I go here and then refresh my app, I see that, well, actually not even the event, there are no events anymore. There's none. What happened? The first thing you will do here as a software engineer is to go and debug, like, hey, what happened here? So let's do that together. We go here, we inspect, and we try to see, like, okay, what is happening here? Open the network tab, and then look at the calls. Let me just even start with the console, and then refresh here and see what is happening. And then we see indeed that it's saying we have the fact that right there, if you're able to see that, let me just zoom a little bit. You see, say, hey, you're looking for something called making an HTTP call to something is like API event search. I don't know what that thing is, right? So that is basically the front end making a call to a backend and then having a 404. From now on, you're probably saying, hey, Devi, you wrote search in the wrong way, right? Cool. So let's go and try to fix that. So in the app here, I have the code. So I'm just gonna go here, and then right there, I have the fetch call, right? We see where the error is. Go here and then fix that. Now go back here, refresh. We still see that we have that issue, right? It calls an endpoint that is API event search. I'm using a Next.js app, and then in Next.js, the route system is file based, right? So I just need to look for the folder API, and then the the file event in there. So let's go and do that. So if we look at it, we have indeed the API folder there, and then we have something called event, right? So there is the S right there. So if we want to fix that, we can then go here and then put S right there. Now once I've done that, you can see now that they're showing again, right? So something is working well, and then if we go and say intro, we see that the featuring is working really well. Actually, all the events that you see there are events that we're going to publish later this year for next year, so that you can join them. There's workshops, fully remote, and you can join that from anywhere in the world, assuming that you're okay to do that during the Amsterdam time, right? CES time. So now you understand that we had to go back and forth between the console, the code, to look for what was broken and so on and so forth. And then beyond that, if you go over here, so let me remove that and then go here and say that thing here is it's called search or search term right now, and then I go over here and then look for intro. Nothing is happening anymore because that variable here, which is a string, is now broken. So if I go to event API, I see that he expects right there something called search to come in, but what we have, it's called search search term now, right? So you have to go ahead and update here, and now you can do it again, intro, right? It's working. So there is this sense of you don't see the error, you don't see the mistake you're making like right away. The application breaks and then you go ahead and try to fix it, right? So and that is basically where technology like tRPC comes in and say, come on everyone, calm down, I'm taking over here, and now we're gonna do it fast in a good way, right? So let me show you quickly how you will do that over here. So I'm gonna go back to this part here where we're doing the thing, and I'm gonna first write the endpoint, right? The endpoint on the tRPC part where I actually access the data. So let me go back to the router. So there is an event router. It's basically a router. Think of it as your Express.js endpoint or Nest.js endpoint, but the concept of endpoint isn't really a thing here, right? We're focusing mostly on a file, which is event router, and in that file we have access to a certain set of properties that we can, these properties are actually functions that we can then consume anywhere in our application, right? So one of these properties you see here, I have router, and then I have something called, it's an object, right? That's an object there. So that object is an object, and I can give it a property. The first one that I want to do is just to have a property all that will query all the events. So the way I do that, I'm just going to use something called a public procedure. And what is a public procedure here is just, you know, the tRPC. So the P there is a procedure, right? It's just that procedure that I'm calling, and then it's just wrapped here into shortened here as a public procedure. So, and then here what you do with it is it's going to give you access to something called a query, and then what you do with the query, you can basically say return here all the events. So here I'm using just the event that comes from the mock, right? The full stack aspect of my entire demo here is only front and back at the moment. I'm not touching in the back, I'm not touching the database, but that's the layer we're going to add at some point. And then on the front, there is also the layer that is focused on the routing system that makes sure that it is also well typed, right? So now once I do that, I have a function that in the event router, I have this event router here that returns me a set of route, and then here we only have one. So what I'm going to do now in the front I'm going to import that in here and then use it over there. So if I can remove the fetch for now, and then I'm just going to use tRPC, and then with tRPC you see right away I have something called event in there. That event there comes from, if I click on it, you see it comes from the app router in which here we define as the route of the application, and then one of these routes is the event router that we just wrote right there. So that thing there will give you an object. See, it's gonna return you that object in there. So that object has a property all. So if I go in there, it says event, and then I can say all, as you can see. And now I want to use the query from that, and then that thing there, it's gonna give me some data, and that data there I'm just gonna call that event, and I can remove that part right here. So as you can see on the left, our event are showing right now, and I can show it that in a different way. We're just gonna say, for example, slice. Let's take a 0 to 1, right? If I do that, you're going to see that it's only one event that is being taken and not all of them, right? So it's kind of working. The only thing that we lost here as features is the search, right? We cannot search because now we only querying the data, right? So let's actually implement the search right there. So what the search is about. So what we're going to do here is to say, okay, actually before I even go to the search, I want to show you something. Let me remove that slice right here and then keep it this way. What I want to do here is, hey, remember the fact that at some point we had to change we changed the query parameter, and then we had to go back and forth and look for what has changed. Was it the search term? Was it the term? Was it the search? And so on and so forth. Here, if we want to imagine that we want to say, instead of slicing 0 to 1, so let me bring that back here, 0 to 1, we want to slice it, just take a part of it, right? So what I could do here, I can introduce this idea of input. So input is a way to define parameters that will be sent from your UI to these functions, right? So here, the way I define it, I'm gonna use something called Zod, right? So let me just import it here from Zod like this, and we're going to import the Z here. So what do you do with it? You just say, hey, I'm gonna have a Zod object that has a property term, and that term is a string. All right, so that basically it's right there. So let me make sure that I make that visible here on the screen. So that's where we at. We have here input. So this is the input validation right there, and then this is the let me do that, yeah, and here we have the query query function right there. Okay, so instead of passing it this way, what I want to do is to say I want this input to be used there. But before I even go there, if you don't see it somewhere here, let me hide that. You see that now this one is already complaining. It's complaining, and it's complaining because the backend has changed. If you want to think in terms of backend or frontend, I don't think that way anymore when I use this tool. I just think file X and file Y. That's it. Because the blur line backend versus frontend kind of disappeared, right? So here you clearly see that you change something in the query on the other side, and this one is not complaining because he expects you to then give it an object which has a property term in it, and then you can pass the term there. So here, for example, I'm going to say the term, I'm going to give it value number 2 here. So you see it's going to complain right away because it says, hey, that thing is a number, and you're giving me something here like that. So if I go here, I can change my contract and say, okay, this one's going to be a number, and when it arrives in here, you're gonna receive that input as part of the function that you give to the query here. You're gonna receive it there, and now that input has a property called term in there. So let me just put input.term. Okay, the naming is probably not the best here because it's not really the term, but you see what I mean here, right? So now we have that, and if we look at our front, we see indeed that this thing here as a value, but yeah, because I am using TypeScript, that entire thing is not working. So the term here indeed is just the value. So let's give it a different name so that we can move forward with the search here. So let's call that instead of term, we call that, I'm just gonna give it a slice. And then since it's a slice, you see right away this one isn't working anymore, so you expect a slice, and then this one here we're just gonna say slice, and we can give it the value 3 for example. And now the term, let's leave it this way. So once we see now that we send 3, and then it send us 3. Now let's do the search. What is the search about? The search is just the search will allow us to discover this notion of mutation, right? So let's public procedure here, and for the search we also need an input, right? We're gonna need an input like this one. So let me put it on the next line as well, so we have a better view of what we're doing. Where is it? So we have the input right there, and then right at the end we're just gonna do a mutation. So what is a mutation? Mutation is basically a simple way of saying like, hey, think of it as a post in the API jargon, right? And then here you're also going to have a function, and that will return you something right there, right? Basically. Now, because we have that search, we can then go say, okay, this one here is gonna receive a search term, and that search term will arrive here as an input. So here, search term is going to be input dot search term, right? So that's basically what we're getting there. Now, I can easily go here and then say, hey, let's just filter the event, and then filter by saying event dot title. We're gonna do that with title to lowercase. Let me do that. Event title to lowercase, right? And then what we're going to do is to say this one includes search term to lowercase, and then we should have something that looks quite alright, but I believe that I have one missing element there. So this is the search, right? And if I go here and I say I need to wire my search in there. Now, instead of using the query up here, I'm gonna remove that and enter the tRPC dot, you see still event, but now as I will see and all and search. So we go with search, and search is a mutation, so we go with that mutation, and then we're going to receive from that, we're going to receive two things here: the data, so that's the event, like whenever the search is being done, and we're also going to have access to something called mutate or mutate a string. We're gonna use mutate in our case here. And then I'm just gonna call that the search search function, right? Now, what we're going to do with it is to say each time the term changes, we want to update. We want to call that search. So what I'm going to do is bring back this approach, and then say we call the search with the term inside. And look, I just need to pass that this way, and then pass it like that, and now I have the term, and then it's gonna also want the search to be in there to be completely valid, right? So as you see here, we're getting to a really good place. Now I can go here and then say intro, and then you see that's working and start type programming. But this is all good and dandy, and we're making some good progress, but there's something that is not fully working, right? Let me show you that. Is the fact that now here we're actually using just an object, right? It's TypeScript behind, so it's all typed. How about adding that backend layer that is also well typed, right? And that's where Prisma comes in. So the way we do that is I have a schema here that has already some Prisma rules, like for example an ID, a title, and description, and I have a database. Let me check if my database is running. Yeah, the database is running. So what I'm going to do is to now wire up, use the Prisma instead of some mock data. So here at that level, I'm going to remove all of this. So probably I can keep it here so you have it in your screen. And what I'm going to do is to actually get the event and like filtered event. And the way you do that, I'm just gonna use an await here, but because I have an await, I'm going to need an async. And then what I'm going to do is to Prisma is available in the context. So there is a context that is being passed here, and that context has Prisma in it, right? And then I'm just gonna say event and then find many. It was already giving me the thing that I need, but then I need a where clause, and the where clause, what the where clause is going to be for me is I want to get everything that is in so it's on the title level. So let me make sure that I'm writing it properly here. At the title level, I want thing that contains that search term, but I also want the mode to be insensitive, because like you saw, we lowercase the thing before, so we have to do it also over here, right? And once we have that, we have that event, and I can actually simply return this, right? I can return this thing there, and if I go back over here, I should be able to do intro to tRPC and JavaScript, and you see, so now we're using a fully typed thing. And I say fully typed because here I could have done something with the ID or description, right? All of these properties are part of the database. If I go in the database part, so let me go back to the schema and then add a property, let's say for example slur, and then say this one is a string and it's not mandatory, so let me put it like that, right? It's not mandatory. And then just go here and say yarn generate Prisma, so it's the other way around. Prisma generate. Once we do that, we should be able to then go back in our event router, and then for example say right away we see that we have a slur that appears here that could be used to do things. And if for example on the front end, let me go back to the front part here, fully at the top, I could say like, hey, I need to have access to let's say event, so I'm just gonna say const ev here, and then I want to call it event. And what is an event here is gonna say, hey, there is event coming from Prisma, and you see now I have a type that I can use to reuse everywhere else, right? So what I'm trying to show you with this this code there is, first, the speed of going from one point to the other. That is already one very important point when you're developing with tRPC. And the productivity level, you see right away if you change something, everything is getting red here and there, and you cannot even push your code if you don't make the right changes. So I don't want to keep this longer than this video, but there you go. You have a quick intro to tRPC, and that was my talk yesterday. I went a little bit further answering questions around tRPC versus GraphQL, tRPC versus REST, tRPC versus many other technologies, and hopefully you get the possibility to try it and have your own make your own idea of what that technology is about. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. You can go on the Hackages Learning platform if you want to learn how to build this app, and that's basically me at Hackages. Bye. Cheers.